So it is 5 minutes after. We do have that 5 minutes right after. No more secrets unless you want to, expose them, have them out and expressed as you would. The bodies are hidden at. Oh, we'll never know anymore. I guess we'll never know. But let's get it started. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a kind of a little special session today. We'll be mostly focusing around the Black Panther survival programs and a soft launching of a project I want to get working on in conjunction with what we're doing on the national side, Timebanking, which itself is another form of mutual aid and itself a survival program. So we'll just get into it. We will start from the top down, but before we do that, if you will check the shared screen, sharing my screen right now, we're going to read a little excerpt from a book that it's going to quote another book from Huey P Newton's first book essays. So we'll start from the very top. Before the survival program, I'm sorry, Jaden, hi, I'm here, Bay Area organizer and whatnot. Every time today was this week's 5 p.m. political education sessions, recording on YouTube and whatnot. Now that's out of the way. Before the survival programs are presented, right, in this book. However, it is appropriate to present Huey P. Newton's eloquent description of the programs taken from To Die for the People, Brother Huey's first book of essays. So, we recognize that in order to bring the people to the level of consciousness where they would seize the time, it would be necessary to serve their interests in survival by developing programs which would help them meet their daily needs. For a long time, we have had such programs not only for survival, but organizational purposes. Now, we not only have a breakfast program for school children, we have clothing programs, we have health clinics which provide free medical and dental services. We have programs for prisoners and their families, and we are opening clothing and shoe factories to provide more of the needs of the community. Most recently, we have begun a testing and research program on sickle cell anemia, and we know that 98% of the victims of this disease are Black. To fail to combat this disease is to submit to genocide. To battle it is survival. All these programs satisfy the deep needs of the community, but they are not solutions to our problems. This is very important to understand about the survival programs. They're not solutions. They're not something that we must seek toward and establish as a permanence, but the survival in the word itself, we need this to survive. It's not really necessarily to keep us established in this way, but these programs are, and as we will read, survival programs pending revolution. So that is why we call them survival programs, meaning survival pending revolution. And in our cases, pending a strike, right? We say that the survival programs of the Black Panther Party is like a survival kit of a sailor stranded on a raft. It helps him to sustain himself until he can get completely out of that situation. So the survival programs are not answers or solutions, but they will help us organize the community around a true analysis and understanding of their situation. When consciousness and understandings is raised to a high level, then the community will seize the time and deliver themselves from the boot of their oppressors. And education is at forefront, our first line of defense in understanding how we are being oppressed, right? Because oppression just happens, and it just does. When people do stuff, shit happens. When you raise your consciousness and your understanding of how things occur, you will realize where the oppression exists in your life. It's not the same for everyone, but we do all experience a type of oppression, especially living in under a hierarchical, patriarchal, capitalist society, of course, which we will get into. Scrolling down, just last paragraph right here. All of our survival programs are free. We have never charged the community a dime to receive the things they need from any of our programs, and we will not do so. We will not get caught up in the lot of embarrassing questions or paperwork which alienate the people. If we have a need, we will serve their needs and attempt to get them to understand the true reasons why they are in need in such an incredibly rich land. Survival programs will always be operated without charge to those who need them and benefit by them. So these survival programs is which we're going to start off our discussion here, and we're going to do a little touching on this little whole paragraph here, just verbally. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. It's all up. Oh my God, where's my mouse? Okay, now it's just my face. So these survival programs are exactly that, as I just read. And if you just read survival, they're not there for our, establishment, right? And as we'll talk about, another survival program, a project I want to start working on is time banking. But we can also look at the schools, the free health care clinics, and the free school lunch programs for the school children, right? Those are survival programs. And the essence of these survival programs, they're not here to stay. They're not supposed to stay. They're here for our survival in a system that does not allow for that program or service, right, materialize. The reason why they are established as a survival program is because they're not here for our benefit, or they're not here. They don't exist yet until we make that establishment of that program. So there existed once upon a time before the BPP, schools, they had no free lunch. There was no such thing as a free lunch program. There's no such thing as feeding the children or whatnot. And I'll even find it right now while I'm yapping. In the book right here, under the school lunch program, the state, the federal, had to admit that the Black Panthers were feeding more children than the actual federal government. So I'll find that little excerpt for you, but this goes to show the intentionality, the power of what it means to come together as a community, to build those sort of structures and relationships off of the need to do so, because the system at hand, our society, does not provide those, right? The survival programs itself are a reaction to the system, of which we do not need such a reactionary program when we finally have instilled this socialist mode of production, this communal side of mode of production. That's the entire essence of a survival program, is to help us survive to get to that point. So the survival programs, of course, are there for survival, but for us and to us, it's also an organizing tool. So survival programs and needs from the Black Panther Party, right? It was all a recognition about needs. So they didn't just say, we're going to make some programs and then it'll be cool, chill, funky, totally amazing or whatnot. There was a deep, strict analysis of what the community needed. Then there was an organizing effort around that need to fulfill that need, right? An obvious one for the Black Panthers and for just the, organizing work at large is food sovereignty, right? Free food, of course, is what came about the Black Panther survival programs, the free food for school children. And so the Black Panthers did this in coordination with local supermarket owners, store owners, grocery store owners, right, with any leftover food that wasn't quite expired but wasn't shelf appropriate. So they would source the food from local grocery stores, co-ops and such, and they would gather it, coordinate it, and set up times and places around. This was in Oakland in the 70s. Right. They would set up times in parks and whatnot. Most of the time it was buildings owned and operated by the Black Panthers to set up these coordinations to get people in to get the free food and then safely out. That was just one survival program, right? But this wasn't a strict analysis of what the people needed. They noticed, the Black Panthers noticed that people weren't getting fed, especially school children, the very youth and the backbone of the growing population of our proletariat, of our labor, of our people as a whole. We're not getting fed. They were not being, given proper nutrition. And so there was an organizing effort around it. And so one of the needs that needs to be fulfilled, of course, was that food sovereignty, was that, ability to get food into the stomachs of the needy, the school children who were not getting the food, right? You either had to pay an exorbitant amount at school, or you had to go out to a private enterprise like a McDonald's or another food establishment to get food. None of it was free. So we can thank the Black Panthers and the survival program for pushing that that bill, that dime, over to the federal government to finally allow free school lunch. And as you can see now, that is being rescinded and repealed by our great old lovely, President Trump. God, fuck that guy. But as you can see, the survival programs really helped people analyze and understand why there was a need or a push to fulfill these needs. It's a human right. Food's a human right, and just one of those survival programs, the very first one and the big prominent one, was that school children one. But the Black Panthers also set up free healthcare clinics, which also inspired portions of the government to be like, yeah, we should probably do something about this healthcare. The Black Panthers are beating us in every single metric about helping the people. That's all the Black Panthers did, help the people, but they did so strategically in an analysis of the material condition, understanding the needs of the community at hand, right? If there was a community of a bunch of farmers, there wouldn't really be such a need to have food sovereignty. The farmers can grow their food, but there still may be a need for healthcare, right? So you would set up or try to attempt to set up a free healthcare clinic with professionals, with all medical supplies. And the book actually goes into how you structure your survival program, right? Most of the time it's a location, people and volunteers, and an objective. That's pretty much the three things that you need. The location is the hardest one to get, right? You need land, and especially an office or a building that you can use the space to make that survival program. Volunteers, not that easy or hard to come by, more or less, right? It's just about getting people together. It's just a location thing, and then an objective, right? So the objective for the survival programs was the food, healthcare, the transportation services. I was reading there was one free transportation. There was a safe program. It was a senior citizens something safe environment for. So back in the 70s, right? And this book will extrapolate on. The senior citizens had to go out. They would receive the check in the mail, their pension check, their retirement, disability, or whatever, the checks, right? And they would have to go cash it out at a physical bank. So they'd have to walk down the street and cash them out. And, knowing the area and, of course, the material situation that most people lived in, robbery and crime was a thing. And it just was a thing. The need to combat this arose from the addressing, of this issue that these senior citizens were having. And so the Black Panther Party also, in conjunction with the free food for school children program, with the health clinic, program for the free health clinics, they also set up the acronym is SAFE, a senior citizens, fear of the environment. That's what it is. To help, these senior citizens, the individuals who are collecting and cashing out their checks, to be escorted by Black Panther members who were, of course, militants of the people, who were armed. They were armed. Black Panthers were armed because they had gun education. And so this deterred crime, of course, as they were being walked, escorted, drove to the place where they could cash out their check, and then they would, of course, be walked back to their home safely. And it's all about safety, of course, right? There's an addressing of these issues in society that does, safety, needs, and general wants and help of the community. That's basically all the survival programs were. It was an analysis of what people needed, and this was a need in the Oakland area and Oakland neighborhoods that people were getting robbed for trying to check out or cash out checks. And so there was a problem. They saw it. They're like, let's coordinate something. And then that's pretty much that's how it was formulated. There was a problem. They saw a problem. They had the resources, organizing tools to, address that issue. And then they went ahead and addressed it. Now, of course, this is like a much larger scale to what we're doing now, right? We don't have GSUS members on the street doing this stuff, but that's what we're building up to. That's why we're coordinating and organizing it with, right? But the Black Panther Party survival programs are very important. Understanding these programs are here for our survival, because the system does not provide a service as such or a good, right? Because the system doesn't provide free lunch or free program or free food education to the people, we must do it ourselves, organized, coordinated, and understanding the need that which we have and which we desire to fulfill, because the system doesn't do it for us, right? The reason why there's free food, because we have to pay food for the system. The reason why there's no free healthcare, because we have to pay for it from the system. So we make and organize those opportunities to get those needs fulfilled by the people for the people, right? And this survival in the system, that second bullet point, I know we talked about, it's about a bunch of survival, but the word itself, survival, is very important to understand, because it's not here to stay, right? We're talking about time banking a little bit. Time banking is not here to stay. These free healthcare clinics, the Black Panther parties, not here to stay. Why? Because they would have been, and they are too, become systematic in our lives so that society can take care of it, not just a bunch of intentionally organized individuals against a system, right? That's kind of the entire point of a survival program. They exist because the system exists, right? The same reason why Black Panther Party exists, right? The Black Panthers exist because the system exists. We exist as a general strike because we have something to strike against. Once there is nothing to strike against, aka when capitalism fizzles out, there would be no need for there would be nothing to strike against. We would have attained all of our demands. We would dissolve and we would move on with society as intended and as, brought upon the strike. So we would no longer have a need for a general strike with another strike. There would be no need for a Black Panther Party when there's no, white oppression against Black peoples. That's just simply how it works. So this aligns pretty much with Maoist organizing. The contrary to what people may understand, the Black Panther parties were an entirely communist organization. Some would say Marxist-Leninist, right? But strictly, they were a communist organization. They were for the people organization. They were commies. They were dirty commie bastards like me. I'm a commie bastard, you know. But more so, it was Maoist organizing, because Mao, when you look at the revolution in the early 1900s, when China went from feudal to, you know, capital, social, you know, in its, you know, formulations, there was a lot of boots working. There was a lot of on the ground boots, going door to door, and the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, still practice this. Members of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, still go up door to door, probably not every single door, hopefully, but they go up door to door asking the people who live in those areas, hey, what's going on? Do you have any complaints? Any, you know, reservations? Do you have any sort of, which, you know, talking points and whatnot? And they would go door to door, knock, and ask these people, same ways that the Black Panther parties did. They would go around to the neighborhoods and ask people, what do you need? And they would start the conversation to build towards the fulfilling of that need. And that's basically how Maoist organizing, MLM, Marxist, Leninist, Maoism, the MLMs. But that's basically how Maoist organizes. You went up to people's doors, knock, knock, knock. Hello, what do you need? Okay, we'll write that down. We will address that need. And they would organize with the people, right, outside and inside the organization to get those needs fulfilled and done, right, with the resources at hand of which they had. And the book goes into funding and, you know, how to secure funding and how to secure volunteers and stuff, you know, to organize this effort, the materials needed to set up these programs and such. But it was pretty much Maoist. It's just, yeah, community surveys, just community. It's community because it's communication really too. So it's about communicating with your community. If you don't know what your community needs, you don't know what to set up as a survival program, you don't know what to do next. So it all begins with the conversation of your community. That's maybe a little bit far ahead for, you know, some organizers, some, you know, people just starting off. You know, you don't want to just go up and over knocking, hey, what do you need? Pen and paper, when you don't have an organizing effort or resources behind you to fulfill those needs. And which is why we're here right now, right? Organizing online and in person to make those structures real so that we can establish these survival programs when we, you know, have the capacity to do so. And the second big bullet point is time banking. It's a project I'm going to introduce after the survival programs. But back to Maoist organizing, it's just really about the community, being boots on the ground and understanding the needs and struggles of the people living in your community. Because every community is different. You're not going to have the same need or struggle in one community than you do another. They may be very similar, but you're not going to get the exact type of issues, especially when you go across vast geographic realms, the geographic locations, right? Needs specifically in Montana are going to be different than Florida. Right, as GSUS, a national organization, you know, at least on this scope and scale, our needs are going to be different from community to community to community, from state to state to state, from, you know, region to region. Our needs are going to be very different. We must address those to, you know, to the people who are actually live in those areas, who actually are experiencing those struggles and need those needs addressed and fulfilled, right? So in this Maoist organizing, right, this is that on boots, foot, ground, in the little red book, intercommunalism, banger idea right there. And of course, the Black Panther parties, you know, headed the revolutionary intercommunalism, which a little side note is this revolution, because it's based off revolution. Right. The Black Panther parties weren't some reformist group. They sought revolution. The survival programs were there. Survival pending revolution is that term. So it's survival programs pending revolution. And that pending revolution will turn those survival programs, right, into solidified structures, you know, in the way society has the capacity to do so. So no more healthcare free clinics, you know, in these little small mom and pop shops and this stuff. They will be established healthcare clinics with appropriate equipment and such provided to and from by society. Of course, the collective labor at which produces that, you know, good and service. So it's like the doctors are no longer, you know, being given a paycheck by the corporate landlords and the, you know, corporations, the boards and whatnot. Doctors and of course the workers and nurses and staff and janitors will own that building, aka own the means of production, which caters towards a public interest, not a private interest, not the ways we do it now in this corporation, you know, private equity and, you know, private enterprise capitalism, one big word, capitalism, imperialism, and such like that. We will no longer be under the restrictions of the private interests should the public own the means of production, aka having those survival programs, right? A prototype of owning the means of production, then utilizing and seizing the means of production to attain that public support, right? That public vast pool of labor and resources to legitimize and formalize these programs. So you have free school lunch programs, like there are programs, but on the national scale, they'll just be a law, a fact, a thing that we do. Just provide food to the kids. It's no longer a program. It's just something that we do, right? And that's the point that we're trying to get. It's just something that we do. Feed the kids. It's not controversial. It's just something that we do. And that's the whole point of these survival programs, to get into the scheme, that mentality, that understanding that maybe this stuff isn't radical. Maybe it's just a human need. Maybe it's just something that we just do. And that's the whole point of the survival programs. So we're going to go index into time banking, which itself, I've articulated and stuff, itself is a type of survival program. And I think it's like an umbrella program. So the Black Panther parties, this is where it differs, right? The Black Panther Survival Party programs are all free. In a time bank, technically nothing is free. You pay everything with your time. And we're going to go into a little description of what a time bank is before I start, talking about the parallels and such. So what is a time bank? How do people time bank, and how is it a survival program, right? So time banking is when, I'll use examples that I've done. It's when I have recycling, right? Just a little example. I have recycling and I don't have the time, means, interest, or it's just collecting dust in the corner. I just put my plastic bottles in a bag and then let it collect. The time bank offered me an hour and a half, depending on the travel time, to go and drop them off at their headquarters. Mine is up north, an hour away from me. So that's where the hour drive comes in. I asked for 2 for the drive back, and they gave me 2. Wow, how great was that? But I drop off my recycling, right, in which they can use for their monetary purposes. It was like $20 worth of, recycling that I gave them in exchange for an hour and a half, or 2 hours in the time bank, right? So you have these time credits, we'll just say hours. You have these hours banked, right? I have about 7 hours banked in the time bank. I'm kind of active in there, but I'm also doing other stuff. But I have hours in the time bank, of which I can use those hours to ask people, like how the time bank asked its community for recycling. I can ask someone in the time bank to have a conversation. Maybe I need help gardening. Maybe I want to help clean up my yard. I will ask the members of the time bank, hey, I have 7 hours bank. I will, give 1 hour to 5 people, 5 hours, right? Or one person 5 hours to help me clean up my yard. Right. And that's what we'll do for the next however many more hours. And then when the job is done, or when the task is done, I will give you the hours, because that's what you do. Right? I asked you for those hours, and we go on our merry way. Now I'm left with 2 hours banked, and that person has, the total of 5 hours that I gave them for helping me clean my yard. That is the essence of a time bank. We exchange our time, right, in tasks of which we do not pay for out of pocket. And here's another example that I'm, liking to use. So as a mechanic, I always pull up the automotive examples. I'm a mechanic, right? So let's say your oil change at a regular shop, you go to a shop, costs $100, run of the mill, $100, $150, depending on where you go. So maybe $70. Now that includes the labor, the parts of the oil change, and then whatever they need to, any fees, tax on and whatnot, taxes and whatnot for the shop. And there you go. Oil change done. 120 after tax, right? At a time bank, you can ask me, a mechanic who has the tools, who has the labor and expertise. I don't have the parts though. This is where the money saving comes in at a time bank. So instead of paying the 150 at a time bank or at a shop, you would only pay the parts at when going through a time bank. So it's about $40, $50 for the filter and oil for your oil change. The rest of it's labor. So instead of paying that $150 at a shop, you would then buy the oil, right, under the consultation expertise of the mechanic, depending on your car, year, make, and model, of course, to complete that oil change. And I will do that for an hour's worth of time credit, of which then I can use that time credit for whenever. Love the graphic. You take a look at that graphic, you see how the time banking works. So let's say instead of paying that $150 at a shop, you only paid $50 for the parts. I would then come in for the 1 hour and be like, hey, I'll do your oil change for an hour as time credit. Cool. Done deal. I did the oil change. Everyone's happy. That person, his car's taken care of. Whoop. I even gave them a little 50-point inspection for free because I'm a homie like that. I'm a comrade. So, and they go out and they're merry way. That person just saved $100, which they can use to pay rent, pay your bills, grab a nice little lunch to eat because they saved themselves $100, right? That's the whole essence of a time bank. It's not to just have everything consolidated and compensated to the time bank. It is to compensate your living inside of a system that needs money to operate, right? So if you can get away with paying labor in time, do it. Because now you're saving yourself money in which other enterprises don't accept time credits for that compensation. Your landlord's not going to accept 3 hours of time credit because you're short $300. They're not going to do that. But the time bank, we will do that. We are going to do that. We will take those 3-hour time credits because that is an intentional, use of your time contributed to the bank, which then can be used for outsourcing other projects, compensating other members in the time bank. It's tight in the community. It's a survival program, right? This survival program at the time bank, it's not something here to stay. It's something here to compensate our people and our lives, to make it easier to live in here in this little capitalist hellscape. So time bank is currently specifically labor. The currency is time. So the 1 hour is 1 hour, and 1 hour is, we treat everyone's 1 hour the same. So some people may not think, 1 hour of my time as a mechanic fixing someone's car, putting an alternator in or a radiator in, or, diagnosing it may not be worth what I would pay someone to, mend my clothes for an hour. If I think it's worth it, if I need, it's need based, right? I can perform in 1 hour of automotive service just like that. It just comes to me, my expertise, and it can go for everyone else as well. Whatever skill or whatever, particular, hobby that you're interested in, and you can contribute to the time bank, you have that 1 hour and you think it's really easy for you to do it, which is good. To other people, it's hard. And that's how a time bank works and functions and operates. Someone thinks something is really easy for 1 hour, something is really hard. But then it's on the opposite side too. This person can do something really easy while the other person does it's really hard. You exchange the one time hour to get those services and skills connected so that you don't have to pay an exuberant $500 for the 1 hour for an expertise. It's just the 1 hour time credit, right? And then you can do larger services and whatnot to get more hours, and you can contribute, move around. It's a little experiment, and such, right? We have written out a program on how a time bank works. That's pretty much the gist of it. What are the intent of behind separating them? So I've addressed this question about money and time and trying to separate them. A time bank, traditionally a time bank, there's no money. You come into the bank and you start contributing, or you start asking. At the time bank that I'm at, you can go into negative time debt, quote unquote, to get your self situated, needed. Like if you need some, you enter the time bank, you need something, you're gonna get fulfilled. Even if you have 0 hours banked, you can go into the negative. And all that means is that you just have to contribute back to the time bank, and then now back you're in the positive, right? And how hours are made in this little model that I'm making is that bank organizers, or just regular people, individuals, work towards the bank or work towards the functions of the bank, which contributes hours to the entire time bank, of which the time bank then compensates those individuals who come in with 0 hours banked, and individuals, right, who need stuff, right? When you enter the time bank and you need stuff, you would want to have your need fulfilled without anything, because that's how you build community and trust, right? We fulfill the need. This is how the Black Panther Party was saying. We don't charge a dime for what we do. We just do it. We see a need, see fulfillment, and we get it done, right? In this time bank scenario, in the situation, the program that I'm trying to set up is when an individual joins the time bank, they can ask for an hour, maybe 2. We'll put a soft cap in the limit, right? Something small, maybe 1 or 2 services or goods, so that they can have an opportunity to have their needs fulfilled right away, right? And that's what I want. And that's what we need to have, right? Let's see, questions. But if you have time bank with no money, then they aren't just changing the name of money. Well, this goes back into a philosophy that I've, built up. Because so take your money of idea. There's the window. Throw it out. Here's what money is. Money is no more than just an access to value. right? Now frame your understanding to money as an access to value. Because what do you use money for? To access value. What you have $1 million worth of okay, you have $1 million, right? You have $1 million. You have $1 million worth of access to value. You have access to value up to $1 million, right? Same thing with time in this time bank situation, right? When you contribute or when you get hours banked, that's how many hours you have access to the value inside of the time bank, the expertise and skill. And so you could call it money, right? My perception of money is very out of touch to what most people think of it, because I don't think of money as I'm a huge spender, but I'm also a huge saver, right? It just depends on the situation. But when it comes to money, it's this non-normal, I guess, type of way of thinking of what money is, because money to me is like time. Because, you know, when I labor and I get money and I equate the time as such, oh, my money is my time is my money. It's all just congealed into this one formula. So money to me and time itself is an access to value. Because when you live out second by second, you're consuming a value. This is very philosophical. You're consuming a value every second. And the value consumed is that experience of life. So every second you experience is that consumption of life, that consumption of being. And that being gives you that ability to experience, or that ability to be here. So I'm going to take this next second to experience life and drink some apple juice. Lovely. That was amazing. But yeah, having our beings and existences and understanding that time itself is also just another access to value gives us into that mindset where it's like you're breaking down individualism at its core. Right? When you think of money, you think of privatization, me, my production of me, personal, individual, my money. Right? When you think of money, it's my money, mine, or private capital, of course, and private enterprise, finance capital, just money in general. Right? Take what you know about money, throw it away. Time banking, right, breaks down this idea of money. What costs something, right? So I dead ass could charge someone $200 for a diagnostic, because that's what the rates are going on right now. I would never do that for any soul. That's highway robbery. I would never charge someone more than $100 of diagnostics. I'm just telling the person what's wrong with them. Why would I gatekeep my knowledge if it meant someone could get helped faster? Right? I almost had someone pay $150 just to as my brother. I just had almost a couple years ago, my brother almost paid someone $150 to tell them that the reservoir was cracked because he was getting an overheating issue. And I clocked it right there when he opened his hood, and I was like, hey, your reservoir's cracked open. Right? There's like some coolant little disbursements or where the crack was. And I was like, that's leaking. And he's like, oh, that it is? Oh, they didn't tell me at the shop. And I was like, that's incredible. That's crazy. So, but so you save that much money just for me to tell him what I saw as an expertise, an understanding of the field. Would this value intermediary exist in different structures than our current value intermediary? Oh my God, big words. Intermediary. Would this value exist in different structures than our current value intermediary? They exist in conjunction with each other. It's a survival program, right? So the Black Panthers had a survival program for free healthcare or free lunch. And you could go get that other services elsewhere for that different currency at which they're using in a time bank, right? Maybe it would take a doctor to explain to you and diagnose you with what your sickness at, or you could spend another $800 for a doctor to tell you at a network or another institution at an actual hospital, right? So let's see, how does time bank community reconcile the perception of value 1 hour of skills not equate 1 hour of another's skill, an hour of attorney's time and out by students? Perfect question. And I have an example right here. Maybe I can pull it up. And then we could talk about it, because this is exactly a situation explained in a zine that I made for our time bank, straight pulled from the website. So let's see if I can share my screen right now. If you guys can see my screen right here, Canva, bam, right there. Okay. So we're going to look at this one right here. Why is everyone's time given the same value? I'm going to see that right there. Okay. So why is everyone's time given the same value? That little block right there. I'll read it out loud. At first glance, it seems crazy that someone's paid the same for a web design and pulling out weeds, like 1 hour to mock up a website versus 1 hour of pulling out weeds, helping out with the garden. That's 1 hour. But this turns out to be the core of what makes time dollars really work. Your time credits, your 1 hour. Putting in a price on people's time separates us by making people more valuable than others, in which we're not. We're all equal. We're all created equal. Raw, freedom and whatnot. So putting a price on people's time separates us, and then time credit excels in building relationships because they place an equal value on everyone's time, right? So it's not like I'm a doctor and I can do all this great bullshit and all this stuff. I deserve to get paid exuberantly more than a janitor, right? Everyone's time you're no more performing, and it's because of the love and expertise of your craft, right? And this goes back into the appropriations of labor versus the appreciation of labor. There's an appreciative factor in form when it comes to time banking. There is an appreciation factor. Under capitalism, there's no appreciation of labor. Right? You are expected to do something and you will be formally compensated for that based off your skill and need of a society. Transactional. There's no love in it. There's no love of labor when we talk about capitalism. There's no love of, time is precious. Everyone lives a second. And the worst thing about living a life is that you don't know when it's going to end. Right? Very scary. Like, you can always make precautions and stuff such to get yourselves, live longer, but no one really knows how long they're going to live. Just live life to the fullest. But life and time is precious to us. And understanding that time, of course, not to be messed and play with. Of course, what capitalism does. Time credit excel in building relationships because they place equal value on everyone's time and relationship above profit. There's no profit motive there, because that's where most people get into that argument and stint. It's where it's like, but my time's much more valuable because I know a particular skill. Motherfucker, I am a mechanic. I know exactly how much these shops charge, and it pisses me off to know that they charge $800 for a service that I could do for $200. Not even for parts, right? Because of the overhead and the profit motive and such, I give out my services away for free all the time. I diagnose people's cars on the street. I'll be like, hey, what's wrong with that? That's making a noise. You should check this out. That's your problem. Okay, have a good day. I love you. That's how I use my expertise. I'm not asking them, hey, give me $50 and I'll tell you exactly what's wrong with your car. It's just a spark plug on cylinder 4 that's misfiring. Ha 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 ha. I'm not going to do that. That's ridiculous. Time credits aren't meant to replace the US dollar. Survival program. They are designed to counterbalance the market economy where people may have invested in special training to make their time more valuable, right? You go into the market economy, in this bourgeois economy, you go into the markets to be like, I have a skill and I want to be probably compensated for it. That's great. That's fine. Time banking is what allows people to get that access without having to pay that much because people love the labor of such, right? There is a love of labor. Like, contrary to what capitalists say about human nature is not inherently greedy. It's the conditions at which exist make us greedy. Humans are inherently dependent on one another, and this dependency is what roots community. And so you wouldn't be able to have anything without anyone. We are inherently dependent individuals, and this dependency can either be appreciated or appropriated, and this is what we exist in the system now. Do you think the time banks would succumb to greed or hoarding if not structured differently than the dollar structure? If so, what would the safeguards be? So in a time bank hours, you cannot invest them. You cannot just put them in a portfolio and expect them to grow. That's not how time works. You can't just put an hour into a CD, a time bank CD, and then wait 2 years and be like, I have an extra hour from doing nothing. That's not how that works. We don't do that. But for greed and hoarding, it comes with a mindset thing. It comes with an understanding of how time is used and how time is seen, right? So when people talk about greed, this comes from the infinite in a finite world kind of understanding of the material condition. It's to say that, we live in such a big and vast world. Everything is, infinite, like capitalism, right? Infinite profits in a finite world. That's the kind of mentality that greed comes from, because when you have a greed, that means 1, you are lacking a need, and 2, you observe and perceive that there is an abundance, right? This manufactured scarcity, it just tells us that we just have an abundance because it's manufactured. Right? When you go to a store, when you go to a Safeway, a Kroger's, a Costco, when you go to one of these establishments, you see nothing but rows and rows and shelves of stocked goods. That is dystopic as shit. Why? Because it's out and about and it's not being used. These products that you see they may rotate and revolve in an inventory, right? FIFO. They may come out in one another, and then the stocks are the shelves are restocked under different products. But there's still shelves and the back. When you go to Costco, there's these shelves of pallets and pallets of bullshit. And so what do you do with them? You wait until people buy stuff to then be able to stock those. It's off of this voluntary, reactionary society, this building of, profits and this, voluntary exchange, this consensual exchange, but there's no intention behind it, right? You can have bags and bags and chips, pallets of fruit, and, just cartons and cartons full of, sliced and diced meat sitting in their sections waiting for someone to buy them, because we live in such a market economy. Time banking doesn't allow for this, stocking of which, because money, right, and this labor is not appropriated, and it comes directly from the individual contributing it. So when I, do this stuff, make zines and whatnot, those hours will be contributing towards, eventually, the time bank, of which the hours would then be used to call upon other time bankers to complete projects, to compensate individuals' times for, other things and whatnot. But back to the little shared screen right here. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just taken over too much of our experience of the world. Almost everything is monetized. We are building a parallel economy, of which you might understand this to be dual power. Oh my God. Love the concept dual power, don't you? Right? Dual power, this parallel of this, this economy where people take care of each other as families, as tight-knit group individuals. All right. We're building extended families or villages by geography. Dual power, right? Because right now we don't have the single currency of money. That's one power. What if we had a currency at which we can, utilize intentionally? That's time. Dual power. Wow. There it is. Dual power. Love the dual powerness, right? So that's basically what time banking comes in and, acts as, is that dual power, as that, second, as that having that, right? Can I assume that there's successful mutual aim rigs built on the time banking something? You could assume. I'm not sure if widespread networks. There are a bunch of time banks riddled around, here in America. I'm a part of one. Day's a part of one. Other individuals are a part of time banks. They're really small. The whole point of GSUS is to make the glue between these, and that's hopefully the outcome of the project that we're working on for this time banking little program project, is to glue these, because you don't want to reinvent the wheel. If people are already having time banks in their areas, we should encourage people to use that existing infrastructure. Attacking the value currency to an unchanging cloak is a really good idea. Yeah. All that good stuff. But yeah, we'll just move on to the next little thing right here. How does an exchange work? So let's say you need someone help in your garden for 2 hours. You could post that request in the time bank, and this is where I need help with the tech team, with their infinite tech team wisdom, to make a platform for this. But this is basically how it works. A request in the time bank, or search the time bank directly and contact another member, right? So in this time bank, you have, I'll even show it to you. This is a little prototype project that I'm working on. So community exchanges, that's another one. People right here, directory. This is what we talk about. We talk about the directory. I have little notes right here. So there's about a bunch of people in business, the providers. So providers right here is how many people are in that little specific category. And you can, go into different categories. So you could be a business and in computers and in education to provide that skill, because that's what you have. That's what you still have to offer, right? So 1, you can set up a request in the time bank, or 2, you can directly reach these people. Clicking on one of these will bring you up to a people's list. This is right here. Don't worry, I've blocked out everyone's information and stuff like that. But this gives you a description of what the people in the time bank have to offer, right? This is a little time bank from the Bay Area based time bank. So this is this person's into computers, education, health, personal. They can reach out to them for their expertise, for their understanding, for maybe half-hour conversation that you give them, to which they can use that half hour for whatever else, right? When people start with a certain amount of time. So I've been thinking about that. I think the way that the base time bank does it is 0 hours, and then you go into debt, or you just immediately start fulfilling requests, at which you can start getting hours. So I think we'll just start 0 hours, just casual. If you go into time debt, no big deal. Just contribute back into the time. But if you never contribute back into the time, cut it as a loss. It's just hours spent, hours lost. We shouldn't be, hold up too much, because it just happened, and we're helping the people while we're at it. So if people come in to receive a service one time, that's fine, right? Yeah. So I was thinking about that too. So I was like, I don't record the people who come into I used to type the usernames of the people who came into some of our meetings. I don't do that anymore. But this would be one of those times where you could get time. So everyone here right now, right, if I were to record everyone's usernames, would get 1 hour in the time bank on their account, to which they can use for 1 hour wherever else. Right. So essentially that's what you could do. Right. Sometimes attending meetings and events, protests out in your local areas could vet you time. As of course, a very raw idea. How do you vet the time? How do you make sure that time's correct? Which is why the project's not hard launched right now. But that's basically what the essence of a time bank is. Right. When you represent yourself a part of the time bank, part of the GSUS time bank, hopefully, or whatnot, is that you then get a certain amount of credits of which then you can use for your other needs. So let's say you attend a protest 3 hours, right? Minimum wage, concessions, workers' rights, big pharma, right? Whatever you're at for protests and such, you're 3 hours there. You will then get 3 hours from the time bank, to which then you can use your 3 hours to, let's say you need your tire fixed and rotated, or your whatnot. Then I would be like, hey, I just need the 1 hour. You completed 3 hours, and I just need the 1 hour. Now you have balance 2 hours and a fixed car. Let's go. And that's the essence of a time bank. It's people doing stuff for need and people having and contributing towards causes, right? The striking and the protests and whatnot, spreading out flyers and zines and pamphlets and, doing what you need to do for the movement, getting those hours, then using your time at which you banked from doing those collective actions and community benefits to then get stuff that you need. Because, we all need stuff, right? We all eat, shit, breathe, talk, and love each other, right? None of that's going away when capitalism goes away. If anything, it was always here before capitalism, right? So, but Time Bank as a survival program, it's not here to stay. Nah. No. Don't get it twisted, right? It's because time banking is just a step into what we do, right? If you have, and I don't want to call anyone, but if you have like a nicer family or just someone who's on good terms, somebody you could do stuff with, that's not time banking. That's just community and doing shit. Like if you ask a favor from a community member, you're not recording the time, the transaction. You're not recording and investing it into that. You would, have that service available to you because you're just a community member. Like, I need a favor. Don't worry about paying me back. If I were a greedy mechanic, I love greedy mechanics, I would pretend need 5 hours to do 1 hour job is to prevent bad actors. Yeah, see, that's why the time bank isn't hard launched, but I do get that. And I am thinking of ways to stop that, because in order to get time from the time bank, I was thinking of two consenting members, the requester and the offerer both need to agree to the services. And that's basically how the time bank works here, is you post a request about an estimate of 2 hours for garden help. That person would not accept your request yet if you send a message. You would talk it out first and then agree to the terms of the service or the good being provided, which then solidifies that time. You then give out that time at that moment, at least in this how this time bank works. Then you would then complete that service on the same day, the next day, or a coordinated day, right? So the time is already given out. Any excess time, of course, would then be allotted by the offerer or the requester, right? So, but yeah, you could have, yeah, you can do anything in a time bank because we all do stuff for time, right? But back to the mechanic thing, right? For bad actors in general, it's just having that two consenting parties. And that's pretty much how the time bank works, right? So you have your two people coming together, the terms, right? That's one way you could prevent that. I'd like another system, of course, to prevent that, probably a tech team specialist to coordinate that kind of system. But as a greedy, as someone who knows greedy mechanics, that's definitely something people would try to do. No. Specialized, yeah, because when I was talking with the time bank coordinators in my local time bank, they emphasized that provide skills and such that you normally wouldn't get in a regular economy. It's something that's like knitting, mostly custom stuff, right? My automotive diagnostics, is kind of something of a market, but then instead of paying that $100 for a diagnostic, it's just coming straight from me, my research, my expertise, and how to do that and stuff. So, but specialization, right? Incentivization. So it's just people doing stuff. And that's the whole basis of the time. It's just people coming here, have their skills and out and ready just to do stuff. And then whenever someone requests something who needs a specific skill or need, they would contact that same person. So back to the how does an exchange work? A time banker then comes by and helps out in the garden, right, for the 2 hours. Once the service is completed, You transfer the hours on the time bank from your account to the service provider. You spent $2 time dollars or 2 hours, right? And another has earned 2 hours, or which where they can use for whatever they need for whatever they are. So this individual spent 2 hours at a garden. They earned 2 hours. Maybe they need an emergency ride or they need an emergency ride from the grandma to another house, which costs an hour. It's an hour-long drive, right? Then you can ask someone in the community who has transportation services, right, to do all that stuff for that 1 hour for me. Who pays scientists that need years for possibly nothing? Who pays scientists that need years? Like, what is years? Like time, hours? Who pays scientists possibly nothing? So you don't really get nothing. Here's the studying stuff. Oh, that's the love of the game, baby. Right? Do you think doctors want to become doctors because they're in it for the profits? I think doctors want to become doctors because they want to help people. Right? Do you think I became a mechanic because I wanted to make a bunch of fucking money? There are a bunch of different ways to make money better. I just love working with my hands, right? And it's all for the love of the game, or as I would say, the love of labor, right? An appreciation of labor, right? So an individual who dedicates their times to a study, right? Like as being a physician or a scientist, a doctor or whatnot in their field, right? They do it for the love of the game. Right. Well, nowadays in bourgeois, higher institution and learning centers, most of it's for that good paying job. But, there are doctors out there for a reason. People love to help people, and specifically to get people up to health, of which they are healthy, sound-minded, all lovey-dovey and whatnot. So, but there are, of course, individuals, because of the capitalist mode of production, that seek that profit out of their labor because of that's what they have been told to do. Rest would have to be provided. So that's what time banks don't cover, right? Unless a time banker has the means to produce such a resource, right? So when we go back to my automotive example, it's I have to go buy the parts. I usually always offer myself to buy it, so it's completely free to my customer or to my person, right? To the person I'm working with. So it could be crowdfunding and mutual aid, but usually it comes from me. Like, so it's $40 for oil and filter. That's I want to say it's nothing, but I can eat that cost for that person, because if it's really true a free service for them, I'd want it to be a true free service for them, which most of the time it is, right? So the resources, of course, because they have been privatized, and what makes it a survival program, right? Because we need to pad the time, and if we scoot over just a little bit this way. Right here. We are building a parallel economy, dual power. The time banking is not supposed to come in and be like, guys, this is a new system that we're gonna do, and we're gonna love it, and it's gonna be great. Nah, it's dual power. It's understanding that we have our different needs, and our needs fulfilled by different enterprises and stuff. So it's like, you're not gonna go to Walmart, have your 3 hours of time credit to get some groceries. They're not going to accept your time credit. They might look at you funny. They might even tell you to go away, kick you out. But you can use those time credits to, let's say, pay for someone to do something that would otherwise cost a service. Yeah. So money, I would say, is used, right? So when I use my example, you save $100 in that oil change when I do it for $50 or $40 for the parts, versus going to a shop to do the entire service like up front. You would then use that $100 to pay for your rent, your bills, or other things that couldn't be provided for by the time bank, right? So you could also get food from the time bank, right? It does cost someone, their resources, their money, and the ingredients to make the food. But the actual assembly of the food, like I was thinking about making loaves of bread for the time bank. It usually takes me about 2 hours, right? Because it rises 2.5 hours to make bread. I would take an hour and a half for each loaf of bread that I make for the people that want it, right? But it's just depending on the transactions. Tortillas are incredible. You can make them, and they make some good fucking chips too. I just had some last night. It was amazing. But that's mutual aid and whatnot. You have your crowdfunding sources to make those things happen. And time banking is just another one of those apparati for us as the working class to use as compensation for the struggle at which we make that. Yes. If you want to make lasagna for someone and it takes you that 3 hours to make, and someone's willing to pay 3 hours time bank to make, there's a transaction right there. If someone really wanted lasagna on the night, like, I don't know what to eat, you can ask the time bank who has food, and you can make a lasagna in 3 hours, a great lasagna at that, and you would accept that 3 hours. That's a time bank special right there. That would be a transaction happening. And I think that's happened in our time bank. People exchanging food, or at least fruit from their trees. So a common one that I see in the time bank is someone asks, I need a fruit pickup, because usually the trees they're not going to collect all of them, right? And they don't want them rotting on the ground. It smells, attracts rodents and stuff. And then, it destroys the property, it makes it look ugly and whatnot. But you have individuals, you ask them, hey, can someone pick up the rest of the fruit on my tree? They're like ripe and stuff, an hour, 2 hours, right? And then the person who accepted that request would then go to that person's house, pick the fruit, and then now for 2 hours, they themselves have fruit and hours because the requester wanted those fruit off of their tree. That's how a trade will work at the time bank, right? You couldn't really hire someone on the street. You could, but then in the time bank, it's formal. You like almost know these people. I know a couple people in the time bank, right, from the stuff that I've done. So there's a built trust, a community built just by simply using the service. I don't know any of these people. There's histories. They're pretty much strangers to me, but since they're part of the time bank, they're homies. They can have my time because they requested, because we're in this intentional community, and time banking is intentional. Right, this intentionality in our community, that's what gets us, building that essential relationships to combat our, systems of capital. Let me just repost the agenda because I'm lost right here. Right here. If it'll let me click. Okay. Time makes it be also really good for leveling the playing field. Yeah, fast loaders. So it can also be like a gig economy kind of thing, type shit. Where some people come in and be like, oh, I need a few hours to do stuff. And you do babysitting for this too as well, time bank, because time bank is so flexible. Because it's need based. It's based off who can do stuff and who needs stuff. And everyone needs stuff and everyone can do stuff. And I think that's perfect. So, but it is that 1 hour pass, a little bit 1 hour pass. So if you do need to go, please go. That basically just does conclude our session. I just want to talk about time banking, how it's a survival program, how I want to start a time banking thing here at GSUS, an online one at first, so that we can get people committed to action, having that, a valor, that, that angst to do work and actually contribute to a place online that actually has material change. Right, even if it's just a conversation, you have half an hour to spend with someone in a voice channel to talk to someone genuinely, to have that time credit. That's a perfect use of the time bank, right? That's an incredible use of the time bank to have conversations, and it's intentional, and the topic at hand. But that's basically what time banking is. More on this project later. I'm still trying to figure out the smaller details of it, but this was like a soft launch of this program. This little project I wanted to get working on. And, if you want one in your neighborhood, that's basically what I'm trying to do with this online. Because with the online national time bank, I want this to be a model for local state chapter time banks for when people come in, get together. So like meetings like this, when you meet for an hour here, you would then, at that time when we have time bank, receive 1 hour of time credit. You pass out flyers and go to protests, you would get time credit for that. If you were to make and help projects, attend more meetings, you would get time for that, of course. And then this also goes into what we were trying to do with the resource skills directory form, which has a bunch of people signed up for it. So we have a good base of skills to use. So this is a nice little project. If you need to go, not holding anyone, but that basically ends it. If anyone wants to come off mute, open discussion, talk, type in more questions, we'll address those. But yeah, that's pretty much the session today. Thank you so much for joining us. It will be here 4 p.m. next week, not 5 p.m. Sorry about this week, but it will be that 4 p.m. next week on Wednesdays. Sessions are recorded, and we're still recording, uploaded on Fridays, noonish my time, 3 p.m. on the East Coast. So thank you much for joining us. If you do need to go. If you have any questions, please ask them. Open discussion, even if it's not even about time banking or survival programs, talk about anything. We'd love to have you. But I will be here for a little bit after to get that, smooth us, round us off. So if you need to go, please. Love you all. I'll be drinking more of this lovely apple juice now.
Hey, Jaden, great discussion tonight. I really enjoyed it, tying everything together with the time banks. Definitely excited to see this project, get in motion. Yeah, it was great. Really hit home, that we need to continue, emphasizing the participation needed. It explained a lot of, how people can participate with these programs and services. Um, Excited. I hope that, it intrigued a lot of people to take, the actions needed for the infrastructure, needed for the strike. We can have as many people signing this card, but if we don't have this infrastructure, these sustainable systems, we're not doing shit.
Nope.
We're still at the whims of Walmarts and Myers and Amazons and so on and so on.
Yep. If we don't own the means of production, we're not going anywhere, right? If we don't have within our means to produce what we want and need fulfilled for our community, you forget about it, right? We might as well be at the whims of the Walmarts, Amazons, who do own the means of production, who does provide our, exploited needs, right? It's all for the people, all part of the people, education, understanding, and the love of labor.
Yeah, I put in the chat too. Just like because I know we got a few boycotts already, like set throughout the year. So just remind folks, why they are boycotting, not to just stay home, but get involved in their communities and some of these mutual aids, these time banks, and help empower our communities. If we're divesting, if we're withholding our purchasing power, that time and energy should be, transferred into our own resistance and to the people.
Yep. For every dollar spent, not at Amazon, but towards your local, maybe a farmer's market, could be a thrift shop, could be a local, a shop that you go to, is every dollar contributing to the solidification of your community, right? So $1 may not seem a lot, maybe $20 every now and then, but then you have an entire community investing directly into the neighborhoods and doors next door. A lot of the good things can happen. A lot of cooperation, community building can happen when you are intentional about your community building.
Yeah, the fact that you brought up earlier, I know we was talking about how Trump is attacking, the healthcare, Medicaid, and shit like that. But even when we think about those state programs and whatnot, and it originally came from the Black Panther Party. Just to put it out there, it was never intended, for the state to run these programs. It was always intended. They were kind of hijacked, like the EBT, the food program, Medicaid, all of those was kind of hijacked, from the party and, privatized instead of given to the public. That was always the intentions of. We do have the opportunity to, turn the tables and, like Jaden was saying, create dual power, and these services and programs should be led by the people, by the community.
That's what grassroots all about. It's for the people. Once it's adopted and hijacked by the state, it instantly turns privatized. It ain't working for the people no more. Fun note, the state itself, we would like to think it's a public enterprise, a little public institution. I note it as public dash private. Like in parentheses, there is public, private, because the state exists itself as an entity that does not work in the interest of the people, who of the people, of course, is the public just by its self-interest. So you have private enterprise, which is regular business, public private, which is your state, your national, your government, you're facing official like state people, right? Public private in parentheses. Always remember that. Talk about the state of California. That is a public private institution, right? It is, you still have to pay for some stuff. It's not really a free thing, public interest for the people. It is a private interest state for, individuals capable of, contributing and benefiting off of the system at hand, the capitalist system at hand. So always think when you look at, the national government, the U.S. government, the military and whatnot, CIA and whatnot, your local, state, and your counties, they are public, quote, private enterprise, as opposed to your Walmarts and Amazons, who are private enterprise. right? Just true public initiatives are those of like the Black Panther Party, who are doing it for free, because it is a right that we have these things. It's a right that we have these healthcare, food, shelter, health, whether it be psychological or physical, right? We all have these services and provided for free. That is a public, no private, because the private interest would then seek to profit off of it. Anything public is simply just there for the people, by the people.
Came in a bit late, but that was really good.
Thanks for being here. Love having you guys here. Every single one of you. Even if you're here for the first time, it's your one time. Always love having people in here.
I've been enjoying the lesson.
Cool. Love hearing that. On the screen is just if you want to read the 3 panels. This is actually this zine right here. Maybe if I can sift through all the zines that we made. This scene right here. The Bay Area base, Bay Area Community Exchange. That's the entire group. The detachment of this is the Timebank, and all the pages that you see on here are on here as well. So I just took the little panels from them because they were generally time bank information, and then on the back half is where we specify this is like specifically for us, the services that we offer. So business, stuff like that, healthcare. Some people are healthcare professionals in there. You can do gift stuff, other stuff like that. We have miscellaneous stuff. Just want to chat and chill, some QR codes, and I pass these out and I drop them around the Bay Area. Just get people in that time bank, get people into that intentional community building.
Just dropping the Black Panther Party link tree, and I'm dropping the Panther Party website in the chat, you all.
The link to the zine, yes. Just in good old GSUS and Black Panther Party fashion, that shit's free. If you wanted to, the designs are free. Instructions are included on the link that I'm about to send. If I could find it, I'll put it in the chat, but all that's free. Let's see. Stop sharing. I don't need to share that anymore. All that's free. So let me get that link for you.
Just out of curiosity, are there any resources specific to this Discord that allow state level organizing?
So I just had that window up right there. That's your link. Some resources about us on the both state, local, and national level, and you'll find some state resources there too. For the case now.
Hey, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube, you all. The political education discussions are posted there, and there's other videos like our welcome meetings and coalition meetings as well.
Yep, do all that there. That case suite, that little drive right there has all the zines in them. Full PDFs, merged and single zines with folding instructions on how to make them, both in video and in PNG picture format. Just make it really accessible. If you can click on that link, you basically can have a zine if you have a printer, scissors, and stapler. You don't even need a stapler, maybe. You can find a way to crimp it, but definitely a printer if you have access to one. That's all you need. All those designs are free for download, PDF form. Want to make it accessible and free to everyone who asks. Right? I know there's a bunch of zine shops that do that. Decolonization Coven does that. All you do is ask them. They don't have a library, but probably just to sift through the people who ask. So usually, generally, zine initiatives have their designs for free.
Probably bind it with some thread, push come to shove.
Yeah. That's what you get when you kind of say a saddle stitch bag. That's kind of what we do. We do saddle stitching. So that's when you take the thread and the needle and you pierce it in the place of the staplers or the staples, because it's just a flat piece of paper like this, and then you will make thread, and then it would be binded together by a saddle stitch. Cool. 15 minutes after is a good place to stop. So thank you so much for joining us. We will be back next week. Topic, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe a bit more time banking. I really like this time banking stuff to bring it to the national level. But, you know, we will do what we need to do. Maybe we'll talk about some Marxism next week. Maybe some anarchy. Could be some socialism. Maybe we'll go back into liberalism. Maybe we'll talk about it. The world is our oyster, you know? And we get to talk about it through deep analysis and understanding of the material condition, right? Which is how we get this analytical thought and understanding, just knowing how stuff works before acting on it. Not to be a reactionary liberal ourselves, to just take what is thrown in front of us and run with it. We take what's thrown at us at hand to study it and analyze it, which is how we derive these conversations in the first place, because we want to talk about this stuff, right? So thank you so much for joining us. Love all of you, right? All the 60 of you here right now. I'll see you around the Discord. If you need anything, ping me. All the links are in the chat right now if you want to take a look at those. But of course, thank you so much for joining us. Next week, I'll hit a blinker for the road for you guys, and then we'll call it quits. Ghost, ghost! You see that ghost? It's a ghost. Oh my god! I'm being haunted and choked by a ghost. Thank you so much for joining us. Love you all. This is my my gardening session time, because it was pushed back an hour, but now we're here. Usually you never see this because we do these an hour earlier, but now you get to see it this one time because we are at that point. So, I got support. A ghost. Another ghost. More ghosts. Okay. That's enough for me. Thank you so much. Love you all. Be here next week. And then that's it.